Hello, I'm Harvie S., and I'm here at Kolstein, NYC. Hello, I'm Harvie S., and I'm here at Kolstein in New York City, Kolstein, NYC. And we're located in the Essex Marriott Hotel, which is right on Central Park and 58th Street and 59th Street. You can enter either way. And this is the podcast called Bass in the Corner. And we're showing bass players that live in New York or in the New York area. And they're the bass players that you see all the time in jazz clubs and Broadway shows and little concerts around the city. And they, of course, if you're in other parts of the world, you may see them touring in other cities or other countries. But these are the lifeblood of the New York scene. And I'm very pleased to say that we have extra special bassist here, Marcus Varela.
Thank you, Harvie.
And great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Yes,
Oh,
this is going to be a blast.
Yeah, it's good to talk with you. And
Yeah.
so, you play around with all kinds of people. So I just wanted to know, some of your, talk about some of your more recent projects or your projects over the next few months or whatever.
Sure. I mean, I guess I would, say that a lot of my career has been, being a sideman like all of us, and listening to, great musicians such as yourself. It inspired me to move to New York. So now I've been here about 20 years. So it's been a while, but it's been able to kind of rack up a nice resume of sideman credits. And I think, I would say since 2016, I've started jumping out there as a leader, and doing my own projects. One being, there was this organization called Creative Capital has funded a project of mine that's a little personal to my history. And it's dealing with this. I'm half, Italian and then half Hispanic, and so this part of northern Mexico deals with this music called huapango, and so I'm kind of doing an infusion project. We're dealing with this rhythm, which is an African diaspora rhythm, a little underexplored in jazz, and I want to do some of these traditional songs I grew up on my dad's side with, and then infuse it with jazz, and then I'm going to have different suites that are connected to different Chicano leaders. And it's fun. It's kind of a project in the works, so to speak. So I'm doing some things coming up, doing some touring on the West Coast in March, and then some gigs around town here at, Zinc Bar and Mesro, where we'll be premiering some of this new music, which I'm pretty excited about, in addition to continuing my sideman work. And then I teach at the new school here in town as well. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, a lot of my family is Mexican.
Oh, really? Oh, no way. I didn't know that. Yeah, that's actually, that makes sense. There's actually a large, we actually have
Chapultepec.
Yes, and we have Sephardic origin in our line as well. You know? So it is actually fairly common. On my grandmother's side, we have that as well. That's really interesting.
Yeah, part of my family, they grew up in Mexico City. A lot of relatives there. So, Mexico has no shortage of great musicians.
Yeah, there's a huge.
Man. Years ago, I used to play with this Mexican piano player, Hector Infantson.
Yeah. I know the name. I haven't worked with him.
And Eugenia Leon.
Okay,
I did a record with her.
Cool.
And so I did. So I got my taste of some Mexican musicians, and I said, they really can play.
Yes, of course.
So anyway, that's wonderful.
Nice.
So I assume, I'm saying this to everybody.
Yeah.
I assume when you were a kid, your parents, your mother and father would say, okay, Marcus, we want you to become a bass player.
Yeah.
I don't think that happens. I guess it happens sometime, but did it happen?
Well, with my parents, it's funny. I come from a pretty artistic family. My dad was an architect, and Mom studied art history, and her father was, he did a lot of different arts, but he ended up being a sign painter to make his living. So they were supportive, I would say. They were very supportive of the artistic endeavor. But of course, at the same time, they're worried about the caveats that can come with that.
Yeah,
so they wanted to
can
make.
he pay the rent?
Yes, and then he's like, I'm doing okay, and so there was a little bit of that involved, I would say. But I think that for the most part, they were really supportive parents, and I think my dad, I lost him about 2 years ago, but he was really kind of a champion of what I did, and he really loved coming up to New York and seeing me play and perform and get down there. There was a big band I work with of Vincent Gardner's that's in Texas, and so I would go down. He'd get to see me play in that, and then he didn't love New York. New York stressed him out. But when he would,
really?
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't his favorite place on earth, and he was always like, I can't understand why you live here. It's like, well, to do the thing I want to do at the level I want to do it, and with the musicians I want to do it with, this is where I needed to be,
Yeah.
And I think that that's really what drives people to come here, even to this day.
But I'm trying to see, how did you get into the playing? Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to get into the arts, and your parents were cool.
Yeah.
Which is great. You're lucky.
Yeah.
But the bass.
The bass, yeah. So there was a guy in my hometown who was really talented bass player, about 4 years older than me, and he we had gone to this arts high school. We had an arts high school like LaGuardia School of the Arts
nice.
here. It was called HSPV. It's still there. It's still called HSPVA. And I had grown up playing sports a lot, and played baseball and all other things around town. And I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I loved music. I'd always been into music since I was a kid. My mom loves music. She had a great big record collection of jazz and a lot of R&B, soul from the 60s and 70s. So I grew up with a lot of Black American music in general. That was just what was in my ear. And being from East Texas, there was a lot of blues, whether it was like Lightning Hopkins, T-Bone Walker, and all this music that I was just hearing all the time. So I wanted to get into it, and then I saw this guy playing the bass, and they had an opening. I said, well, maybe I could play that. Maybe that might be the one I fit. And then I remember we went to the store, and my dad was like, don't you want to play guitar? And he said, well, everyone needs a good bass player. And I said, you know what? I think that's what I want to do. And so I chose it and started going home and playing those records of my parents and just playing along and kind of just playing by ear originally. And learned just enough to get into that school. And I remember I would memorize those big band charts by ear. I couldn't read. It was all these kind of.
I know that.
So it was kind of a good thing in a way. It was good ear training. It kind of got me started off on the right foot. But I didn't know that at the time. I just was scared to read, and then eventually that became a part of what I grew and learned how to do. But that was kind of how it started out. And I spent those couple years, and then I got a scholarship to come to the new school here. A lot of the people from Houston were coming to New York, and we had out of that school there was pretty prolific amount of musicians. So that's that's how that route came about.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so
yeah. Well, worked out.
Yeah.
So, you've been around, you've been on the road, you've done a lot of different things, and you've met a lot of people, some weird. So you might have some funny stories or interesting stories to tell.
Yeah.
I mean, I love road stories.
Yeah. Well, I think, you had asked me previous to this, and I was thinking of, what good ones do I have? And I just remember, I think it was 2017, and I had this gig at the Akbank Jazz Festival in Turkey, in Istanbul. And I remember 3 of the musicians in the band were American citizens, and a few weeks, maybe a week before, our president at the time got into it with the president of Turkey, and they were like, no Americans can come, basically.
Yes, I remember
Do you remember
that.
this? Yeah. So this was around, and so the band leader was like, well, it's okay. We're gonna make it work. The Ministry of Culture there says it's okay. They're gonna write us a letter. So they wrote us this letter, and we had to. It's a very convoluted thing we had to do. We had to wait a night or two in Belgium, and then fly from Belgium there. And still, we get through. They're checking our tickets. It's like, well, you're not allowed to come. And then it's like, no, we have this. We have this pass. We literally get to the Istanbul airport, and the 3 of us, they see us at the board and say, you have to sit here. And we waited maybe half a day. It was at least 6-7 hours sitting there. We're missing sound check. We're all looking at our watches like, are we going to even make this gig? And then we get there and they're telling us, we need to go straight to the show, and no sound check, nothing. We couldn't even change our clothes. I'm like, can we at least change our clothes? I need a quick shower. They luckily let us do that, and then when we're about to go on stage, it's like you can't tell anyone the reason why you were late. And so we're all sitting there like, okay, well, this is very intense, but it actually turned out to be a wonderful concert.
But you ended up playing.
We ended up playing. We made it. We started late, but we ended up playing, and it was actually a really beautiful concert, and then we had a wonderful meal after. So that was sadly my only experience of Istanbul. Now I'm sure it's so much easier to go right now. I'd love to get back there and actually see it because. I didn't really get a chance to experience Turkey,
Right. Yeah, I've been over there a couple of times.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But I heard that during that time there were a lot of people that had wanted to get married. Someone from Turkey and someone from another country.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get together, and it was a bad time. But I think, like I said, I think that's over.
Yeah, no, it's over. I think there was just a brief little blip in time, and I think the relations between U.S. and Turkey are okay now, but that was just one of the many kind of crazy road stories you get. There's always something that pops up. I'm sure there's other. I'll remember after this. Oh, I should have told him that one. But I'm sure like we were talking earlier. There's always some interesting band leader or road story that you'll just be like. It's a great experience. You'll take it with you forever, and it's kind of what makes this career and profession so fun too.
Right, exactly. Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. Yeah, for sure.
I think about all the kind of crazy times I've had, and it's just too much. But so you've been to the shop before.
Yeah,
you've been here.
Well, you introduced me to Barry years ago. You were my original connection. Because I remember. I remember where it was. You heard me playing. He's like, "Oh, you got to meet Barry. He would, love to work with you." And so, I appreciate. Thank you for that. And so, Barry and I, when he was still in charge, man, he does a wonderful job now, and love him as well. It was just, I remember Barry, kind of said, "Hey, try these strings," and I just fell in love with the Kolstein Heritage, the ones you were using.
Yeah, especially the new version.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, they had a good version of the string.
Yeah.
But they went out of business because of the pandemic, so then they had to go to a new string place.
Yes.
And Barry kind of used it as an opportunity to improve them.
Yes.
And I said to him, Barry, they really don't need much improvement.
Yeah, they didn't,
But he said, no, I got some ideas. So we worked on it, and he would send them to me.
Yeah.
And he did a kind of an improvement.
Yeah.
And then he sent them to me, and I said, Barry, we're close.
Yes.
But it needs one more thing. And he said, okay. He said, because the people making the strings said, we could do one more thing. And then they said, we're not doing any more. We've had it.
Yeah.
So they did the last thing.
Yeah.
And I think it was enough to get it. Now they're great.
No, I love them. They just really, for Arco, they work really well, Pizzicato. And I always was wanting something that was in between. The steel never felt totally the sound I wanted, and I like the fact that they have that, like kind of a mix between the clarity of a steel string, but the kind of the fat kind of thumpiness of a gut string, and they're resilient now. They have more resiliency than they did before. I feel like before they would, they were fragile. You had to be careful with them.
They could break.
And they could break, and I didn't mind that. I'm careful with my stuff, so that wasn't an issue. But now that I don't have to worry about that, I love them even more. I have them on all my basses. I have them on my K, my Juzik, and they just really sound great on all of them. And I feel like it really opened up my playing. I could play things that I was hearing that I felt other strings just didn't allow. So I'm a big fan. Yeah.
I'm so happy because I feel the same way about those strings.
Yeah.
And
I thank you for that. That introduction was, and also the introduction to Rick, who we both love with the, sadly he passed, but the acoustic image,
Yeah, so. I just got an email last night from somebody who says, I really want to get an upshot amp, but I can't find one. And I said, unfortunately right now, unless we can get another company or somebody to help out. I don't think we can do another
Yeah.
another amp. So it's kind of sad. But do
Yeah.
you have an upshot?
I do. I have an
Oh,
upshot,
good.
and it was funny. I remember when I Ingrid Jensen, and I've
Yeah.
worked with her band over the years a lot, and even they called me. They was like, "What about we were building a studio in a house? What's that cool little amp that you had?" And I said, "Well, it's this thing that Harvie came up with, the Upshot." And but I don't think you can get them anymore. Now
No.
when the Rick passed, so
I'm trying to get a company
Yeah.
to be interested, but so far, not
Oh, man.
been able to
Yeah.
get it together. But we just move on. But great. Anything else you'd like to say to everybody?
Oh well, yeah. I guess that. Yeah. I mean, if you're interested, I guess for my projects coming up, please check out my Creative Capital project. I think that's going to be neat. I also have sideman work with different artists. I feel like of all generations. I have my own bands, but then if you ever check me out, I've worked with Eddie Henderson, Ingrid, and just different. It's all over the board. So you can kind of see what.
Yeah.
I'm out there playing, being a sideman, then also living the life of trying to be a leader. It's an interesting thing, I feel like you do the same. You've had a similar kind of career where you had this large, being a sideman for a long time, but then when you step out as a leader, as a bass player, that's a whole other thing. How to develop your repertoire, how to develop, like what songs do you want to write, and then also like what songs you just want to play that exhibit maybe your playing. I just find that it's a whole other mindset, that
A whole other, as they say, ball of wax.
ball of wax. Yeah.
To be a band leader, and I kind of shied away from it for a while.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'll ever go back to it, but maybe, who knows?
Well, I hope
But-
you do. I always loved hearing your stuff. So.
Oh, thank you,
Yeah,
thank you.
especially the
maybe.
record you did with Dawson. I thought that one was so cool.
Yeah,
yeah.
that was amazing that it was found.
Yeah.
The guy that had the thing, he had it and he never told me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I would talk about that gig, and finally one night I blurted out. I said, it's really too bad we didn't get a recording of that.
Wow.
And he said to me, "Oh, I have it."
Really? Wow.
He says, "I've got all 3 nights."
Crazy. Wow.
And I said, "Oh, okay." So that was the beginning of that.
Was that the only time you got to work with Alan, or no?
No, I worked a lot with Alan
cool.
over the years.
Yeah.
Because
With
I'm
Stan.
from Boston area.
Yeah.
And I used to be the house bass player at the Jazz Workshop and
Oh, wow.
Lenny's and the Turnpike, and Alan would be on a lot of those gigs.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
then I used to do the records with a couple of people, and I went up to Boston and recorded a few records
Oh,
with him.
wow.
So I did a little bit with Alan.
Very
Not
cool.
a lot, but
Yeah.
amazing player.
Amazing player. Yeah, definitely one of my favorites and to listen to for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Alan's special. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
But okay, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Harvie.
For
Appreciate
coming
it.
today and,
Yeah.
and telling great stories.
Yeah.
And we'll keep in touch.
I love that. Yes.
Thank you.